The message arrived on a Tuesday. Ambassador Chen Wei sat in the sterile white chamber of Earth's diplomatic station, watching the holographic display materialize before him. The familiar blue glow of the Galactic Council seal pulsed twice before dissolving into the stern face of High Chancellor Vextar, his crystalline features catching the artificial light. Species designation: human. Planet designation: Earth. Sector 7 Alpha, the Chancellor began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. By unanimous decision of the Galactic Council, comprising 473 member civilizations, your species has been deemed incompatible with peaceful galactic coexistence. Chen's face remained perfectly calm. He had expected this day for years. Your history demonstrates an alarming propensity for violence, territorial expansion, and resource exploitation. Your recent attempts at colonization beyond your home system, despite explicit warnings, constitute a direct violation of Galactic Accords 15 through 47. The ambassador leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. Behind him, through the reinforced viewing ports, Earth hung like a blue marble against the starfield. Beautiful, peaceful, deceptive. Therefore, Chancellor Vextar continued, the Galactic Council hereby declares a state of total war against the human species. You have 72 standard hours to prepare whatever defense you deem appropriate. May your gods have mercy on your souls, for the galaxy shall have none. The transmission ended. Chen sat in silence for exactly 30 seconds. Then he smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting his entire life for Christmas morning. He reached for his personal communicator, bypassing all standard diplomatic channels, and entered a code that hadn't been used in over 200 years. Priority Alpha. Authorization Chen 77 Omega. Initiate Protocol Damocles. The response came immediately, transmitted simultaneously to every major city, military installation, and orbital platform around Earth. A single word broadcast in perfect synchronization across the globe. Finally, within minutes, the transformation began. In New Geneva, the pristine halls of the diplomatic corps suddenly bustled with activity as personnel began removing false wall panels, revealing rooms full of advanced weaponry and tactical displays that had been hidden in plain sight for decades. The cultural attachés shed their civilian clothes, revealing military uniforms underneath. In orbit, seemingly peaceful research stations began unfolding like deadly flowers. Solar collectors retracted to reveal weapon arrays. Scientific modules separated to become weapons platforms. The International Space Elevator, humanity's greatest engineering achievement and symbol of peaceful progress, began extending additional cables, not for cargo, but for launching platforms that had been disguised as maintenance pods. On Earth's surface, every major city experienced the same phenomenon. Buildings that had stood for 100 years revealed their true purpose. The Museum of Natural History in New York opened hidden sublevels filled with strategic command centers. The Library of Alexandria, rebuilt as humanity's greatest repository of knowledge, powered up quantum computers that had been calculating battle scenarios for generations. But the most dramatic change was in the people themselves. Dr. Sarah Martinez, who had spent 20 years as Earth's leading xenobiologist, calmly walked into her laboratory and began methodically destroying her research on alien physiology, not because it was useless, but because its true value lay in the weapon designs it had inspired. She had never been just a scientist. None of them had been just anything. Captain James Rodriguez, officially a cargo hauler running supplies between Earth and the outer colonies, received his activation code while docked at Ganymede Station. His cargo ship began its transformation immediately. The holds that had carried grain and water for 15 years opened to reveal fighter bays. The agricultural processing units revealed themselves as weapons manufactories. His crew of 12 farmers and engineers became a strike force of 40 veteran soldiers who had been waiting in cryogenic sleep. In every corner of human space, the illusion fell away. The Galactic Council had made one critical error in their assessment. They assumed that humanity's history of warfare was a sign of primitive barbarism. They assumed that Earth's apparent military weakness was genuine. They assumed that humanity's desire for peace was surrender. They had never considered that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their capacity for violence. It was their capacity for patience. For 300 years, since first contact with the Galactic Council, humanity had been playing the role of the primitive, rebellious civilized species that needed guidance and protection. They had accepted insults, territorial restrictions, and condescending treaties. They had smiled and nodded when alien diplomats spoke of humanity's unfortunate but understandable violent tendencies. They had appeared to struggle with basic space travel while secretly perfecting technologies that would make the galaxy's most advanced civilizations look like children playing with fire. Every human diplomat, every human scientist, every human trader and explorer, all of them had been waiting for this day. The day the galaxy finally gave them permission to stop pretending. Ambassador Chen stood and walked to the viewing port, watching as Earth's defensive platforms came online. Thousands of them, hidden in asteroid belts, disguised as commercial satellites, masquerading as space debris. The planet below began to glow with the light of massive industrial complexes powering up, complexes that had been hidden beneath farms and cities and forests. His personal communicator chimed. Admiral Sarah Hayes, commander of Earth Merchant Marine, appeared in the display. Behind her, Chen could see the bridge of what the galaxy knew as civilian transport. But Hayes was wearing the black and silver uniform of the Earth Defense Force, a military organization that officially didn't exist. All assets report ready, Ambassador, she said. The colonies are online. The fleets are moving. The galaxy wanted to see what humanity looks like when we stop holding back. Chen nodded, still smiling that dangerous smile. Send a response, Admiral. Let's show them what they've been missing. The transmission went out on all galactic frequencies, broadcast simultaneously from 1,000 hidden stations across human space. The message was simple, delivered in Ambassador Chen's calm, diplomatic voice. Message received and understood. Humanity accepts your declaration of war. We thank you for finally giving us permission to be ourselves. See you soon. The galaxy was about to learn what 3 centuries of patience had brought, and humanity couldn't wait to show them. The first wave hit 18 hours later. Fleet Commander ZYX Thaler of the Hegemony 6 Fleet had volunteered for the honor of beginning humanity's extermination. His armada, 200 vessels representing the finest military technology of 36 worlds, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, exactly where the battle was supposed to take place. Empty space greeted them. Sensor sweep complete. Commander, reported his tactical officer, her forearms dancing across crystalline control surfaces. No human vessels detected. No defensive platforms. No orbital installations of military significance. ZYX Thaler's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The humans were probably cowering on their planet, hoping their surrender would be accepted. It would not be. The galaxy had decided that humanity was a virus to be cleansed, not a negotiating partner. Take us to the 3rd planet. Prepare planetary bombardment systems. This ends today. The fleet began its approach, maintaining perfect formation. 200 ships, their combined firepower capable of sterilizing entire star systems, moved through space like harbingers of extinction. They never saw the first attack coming. The cargo containers drifting in Jupiter's orbital path had been there for months, logged in every shipping manifest as routine industrial waste. Hundreds of them, slowly tumbling through space, ignored by every scan because they registered as nothing more than discarded metal and plastic. When they opened, each one revealed not garbage, but a single human fighter craft. The ships were impossibly small by galactic standards, no larger than the aliens' escape pods. But they moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They didn't follow predictable attack patterns or maintain formation flying. They swarmed like insects, like schools of fish, like something alive and angry and utterly alien to every military doctrine in the galaxy. Contact. Contact. Multiple small craft, origin unknown. The tactical officer's voice cracked with panic as the displays lit up with hundreds of new signatures. They're everywhere. The human fighters didn't announce themselves with targeting warnings or demands for surrender. They simply attacked. Commander ZYX Thaler watched in horror as his flagship shield flared under weapons fire unlike anything in the galactic databases. The humans weren't using plasma cannons or particle beams or any of the standard energy weapons that civilized species have perfected over millennia. They were using projectile weapons, kinetic kill vehicles that punched through shields like they weren't there, because the shields had been designed to stop energy, not solid matter moving at significant fractions of light speed. Return fire. All batteries. Return fire. His weapons officers complied, filling space with enough concentrated energy to vaporize asteroids. The human fighters danced through the barrage like drops of water in a rainstorm, untouched and undeterred. Then the second wave hit. The asteroids that had been slowly orbiting between Mars and Jupiter for thousands of years suddenly weren't asteroids anymore. They were ships. Massive, impossible ships that had been hiding in plain sight, camouflaged as space rock, powered down and patient. The human dreadnoughts came online with the fury of awakening giants. "Impossible," ZYX Thaler whispered. "The energy signatures, how long have they been here?" His science officer, frantically scanning the new contacts, turned all 6 of his eyes toward his commander. "So, based on the mineral accretion on their hulls, some of these vessels have been in position for over a century." A century? The humans had been preparing for this war since before most of the current Galactic Council had been born. The dreadnoughts opened fire. The weapons they used defied explanation. Beams of coherent gravity that twisted space-time itself, turning the aliens' own mass against them. Projectiles that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, striking targets from directions that geometry said were impossible. Energy weapons that didn't just destroy, they converted matter into exotic particles that made shields not just useless but actively dangerous to maintain. Commander ZYX Thaler's flagship, the pride of the hegemony fleet, ceased to exist in any meaningful sense. One moment it was there, 2 kilometers of advanced alien engineering and 5,000 crew members. The next moment it was an expanding cloud of elementary particles that would eventually condense into hydrogen given a few billion years. The fleet commander had exactly enough time to transmit a final message before his ship joined the cosmic background radiation. They are not primitives. They are not primitives. They are. The transmission cut off. Across the solar system, the same scene repeated itself dozens of times as the vaunted Sixth Fleet encountered humanity's true face for the first time. Ships that had dominated 100 worlds discovered that their weapons couldn't penetrate human armor, their shields couldn't stop human weapons, and their tactical computers couldn't predict human strategy. Because human strategy wasn't based on the careful, mathematical precision that governed galactic warfare. It was based on something the aliens had never encountered in space combat. Creativity born from 3 billion years of evolution on a world that had tried to kill every living thing on it every single day, for eons. The surviving alien vessels, less than 30 out of 200, fled in random directions, their crews broken and babbling about impossible physics and weapons that couldn't exist. On Earth, Admiral Hayes received the battle reports with grim satisfaction. The first test was complete. The galaxy's finest military force had lasted exactly 4 to 7 minutes against humanity's defensive systems, and those had been the defenses they were willing to reveal. "Send word to the colonies," she ordered. Phase 1 is complete. Begin Phase 2. Across human space, the real war began. On Kepler 442b, humanity's most distant colony, the agricultural researchers, who had spent 50 years growing food and studying soil composition, quietly activated the massive railgun they had built into the planet's northern continent. The weapon was 300 kilometers long, powered by the planet's entire geothermal system, and capable of accelerating projectiles to 12% of light speed. Its first target was the Altarian home fleet, stationed 4 to 7 light-years away. The projectiles would take 400 years to reach their destination, but they would arrive precisely when humanity wanted them to, just as the Altarians were mobilizing their forces for the counterattack they were already planning. On Europa, the ice miners who had been harvesting water for the past century revealed that they hadn't been mining ice at all. They had been building a factory that had produced exactly one product for 100 years, nanoscale machines designed to infiltrate alien computer systems. The nanites were already spreading through the galaxy's communication networks, invisible and patient, waiting for the activation signal that would give humanity access to every military database, every strategic plan, every secret the galaxy's civilizations thought they had kept hidden. But the most important phase was just beginning on Earth itself. In the deepest bunkers beneath the Sahara Desert, behind locks that required genetic codes from 12 different individuals to open, humanity's greatest secret prepared to wake up. Project Prometheus had been humanity's most classified program for over 2 centuries. While the galaxy watched and judged and condescended, Earth's greatest minds had been working on a single question: What would it take to not just survive in a hostile galaxy, but to thrive in it? The answer hadn't been bigger weapons or faster ships or stronger shields. The answer had been evolution. Dr. Elizabeth Shaw, the project's chief architect, stood before a viewing window that looked down into a chamber containing humanity's future. Inside, thousands of pods lined the walls, each one containing a volunteer who had chosen to become something more than human. How long until they are ready? Admiral Hayes asked, joining Shaw at the window. They've been ready for 50 years, Shaw replied. We were just waiting for permission to let them loose. The pod began to open, and humanity's true children started to wake up. The galaxy had wanted to see what humans looked like when they stopped holding back. They were about to find out that the humans they had been dealing with were just the opening act. The counterattack came from 7 different directions simultaneously. Admiral Kethmore of the Coalition Combined Fleet had learned from the Sixth Fleet's destruction. Instead of a single massive force, he had coordinated with 6 other major powers to create a web of approaching fleets, each one powerful enough to destroy Earth's solar system, each one approaching from a different vector to prevent the kind of ambush that had annihilated ZYX-style forces. 7 fleets, representing every major military power in the galaxy. Over 3,000 ships carrying weapons that could crack planets and shields that had never been breached. Crew members from species that had been waging war when humanity was still discovering fire. They dropped out of hyperspace in perfect synchronization, creating a sphere around Earth's solar system with no gaps, no escape routes, and no possibility of human trickery. The solar system appeared exactly as it had before, a few orbital platforms, some scattered industrial facilities, and one blue planet full of primitives who had gotten lucky once. All fleet commanders. Report status. Admiral Kethmore broadcast across the command network. Northern approach. Admiral SYXTEL reporting. No contacts. No defensive systems detected. Eastern vector. Commander Nixlar. Space appears clear. Proceeding to attack formation. Southern approach. Fleet Marshal QYXDAN. Sensors show normal planetary activity. No military preparations visible. One by one, all 7 fleet commanders reported the same thing. Earth looked defenseless. Admiral Kethmore felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. The humans had demonstrated impossible capabilities just days before. They wouldn't simply abandon their defenses, which meant all fleets execute maximum defensive posture. Full shields, all weapons online, active scanning. The humans are here. We just can't see them. He was right. The humans weren't hiding in asteroids this time, or disguised as space debris. They were hiding in something far more audacious, plain sight. For 3 days, while the galaxy's fleets had been mobilizing, humanity had been deploying their most ambitious deception yet. Using technology that bent light around objects, created false gravity signatures, and generated phantom energy readings, they had made their entire battle fleet appear to be empty space. 3,000 human ships hung motionless in the void, each one within point-blank range of an alien vessel, invisible and patient. The attack began with a single word, broadcast simultaneously to every human ship. Now. Space erupted. But this wasn't the chaotic swarm tactics the aliens had faced before. This was something that made every military commander in the 7 fleets question the fundamental nature of reality itself. The human ships didn't just attack. They coordinated with a precision that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Every shot fired by every human vessel arrived at its target at exactly the same microsecond, despite the vast distances involved. Every maneuver was perfectly synchronized with every other maneuver, as if the entire human fleet was a single organism with 3,000 bodies. Because in a very real sense, it was. The enhanced humans from Project Prometheus weren't just commanding the ships, they were the ships. Neural interfaces that went beyond anything the galaxy had imagined connected human consciousness directly to their vessel systems. But more than that, the enhanced humans were connected to each other, linked by quantum entanglement into a collective intelligence that could think and react faster than any individual mind. Admiral Kethmore watched his command ship shields fail under weapons fire that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. His tactical display showed impossible things. Human ships that were simultaneously in multiple locations, energy signatures that suggested matter was being converted directly to energy at 100% efficiency, and attack patterns that required the humans to be predicting his fleet's movement several seconds before they happened. How? he whispered. "How are they doing this?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Elena Vasquez, one of the enhanced humans, opened a communication channel to the alien admiral. Her voice was calm, almost apologetic. "You made a fundamental error in your assessment of our species, Admiral. You assumed that our history of warfare was a weakness. But war wasn't what made us weak. It was what made us strong. Every battle we fought, every weapon we created, every strategy we developed, all of it was practice for this moment." On his screens, Admiral Kethmore could see his fleet being systematically destroyed, not in the chaotic fury of battle, but with clinical efficiency. The humans weren't just winning. They were studying, learning, adapting to every weapon and every tactic in real time. "You see, Admiral, we've never fought a war we intended to win quickly. Every human conflict in our history has been about learning how to fight better, how to coordinate better, how to think better. We've been preparing for this war for our entire evolutionary history." A human ship materialized directly above the Admiral's flagship, having somehow penetrated shields that could stop plasma hot enough to melt stars. The weapons it deployed weren't designed to destroy. They were designed to capture. "But the real mistake you made," Dr. Vasquez continued, "was assuming that we were still the same species you've been dealing with for 3 centuries. The alien crew of the flagship found themselves unable to move, held in place by fields that interfaced directly with their nervous systems. Around them, the ship's systems began changing, adapting, rewriting themselves with technology that seemed to grow rather than be built. Evolution, Admiral. We've spent 300 years learning everything about every species in the galaxy. Your biology, your psychology, your technology. And then we asked ourselves, what would humans need to become to not just survive in this galaxy, but to thrive in it? The captured aliens watched in horror as their own ship began turning against the remainder of their fleet, its weapon systems upgraded in real time with human technology. The answer was, we needed to become something that could think like the entire galaxy at once, fight like we had been practicing for billions of years, and adapt faster than any other species could evolve. One by one, the 7 fleets fell silent. Not destroyed, captured, converted. Every ship, every crew member, every piece of technology integrated into humanity's growing collective. But the most disturbing part wasn't the defeat itself. It was what happened afterward. The enhanced humans didn't celebrate. They didn't gloat. They simply began the next phase of their plan with the same calm efficiency they had shown in battle. Every captured alien was placed in stasis while human nanomachines analyzed their biology, their neural patterns, their genetic structure. Within hours, humanity understood these species better than they understood themselves. The captured ships were taken apart and rebuilt, their technology integrated with human systems to create vessels that were simultaneously familiar and utterly alien. Ships that could think, adapt, and evolve in real time. But most importantly, humanity now had 7 complete fleets worth of alien ships, alien uniforms, alien identification codes, and alien crew members who could be perfectly impersonated by the enhanced humans. Dr. Vasquez stood in the command center of what had once been Admiral Kethmore's flagship, now transformed into something that was part starship, part biological organism, and part quantum computer. Around her, displays showed the locations of every major military installation in the galaxy. "Phase 3 is ready to commence," she reported to Admiral Hayes on Earth. "The infiltration fleets are prepared." Affirmative. We can now perfectly impersonate 7 different species, complete with their command codes, their tactical doctrines, and their biological signatures. The galaxy will never know we're coming until it's too late. Admiral Hayes nodded grimly. Humanity had spent 3 centuries being underestimated. Now they were going to use that same strategy against the galaxy itself. Begin the infiltration. But remember, we're not conquerors. We're liberators. Liberators, Admiral. From the delusion that the galaxy was ever safe from the species that conquered its own planet before it could even leave it. The enhanced human smiled, and for a moment, something flickered in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Something that suggested the line between human and post-human was becoming increasingly theoretical. Understood, Admiral. The galaxy wanted to see what humanity looks like when we stop pretending to be weak. Phase 3 will show them what we look like when we stop pretending to be human. The infiltration fleet departed in 7 different directions, each one carrying a perfect mimicry of an alien culture, and each one carrying humanity's true children to the heart of galactic civilization. The war was no longer about survival. It was about evolution. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session aboard Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as a political heart of the galaxy. Representatives from over 400 civilizations had gathered in the Great Assembly, their voices creating a cacophony of fear, anger, and disbelief. High Chancellor Vextar called for order, his crystalline form crackling with barely contained energy. Fellow beings, we face an unprecedented crisis. 7 of our most powerful fleets have gone silent. The human homeworld appears to be intact, but all communication with our forces has ceased. The assembly erupted in panicked chatter. The Altarian delegate, her translucent body pulsing with bioluminescent patterns of distress, rose to speak. Chancellor, my government has lost contact with our entire 3rd battle group. Their last transmission indicated they were engaging primitive human vessels. That was 6 days ago. Similar reports came from across the chamber. The hegemony had lost 2 fleets. The coalition's combined fleet was missing. The Zephyrian Empire's supposedly invincible dreadnoughts had vanished without a trace. Perhaps, suggested the Keth Moran representative, his mechanical voice grinding through the station's translation systems, we should consider the possibility that we underestimated the humans. The suggestion was met with immediate outrage from dozens of species. The humans were barely spacefaring. They had been confined to a single-star system for centuries. They used projectile weapons and chemical propulsion like barbarians. But as the debate raged, none of the delegates noticed the subtle changes occurring around them. The Altarian military attaché who had been attending council sessions for 3 years showed no signs that his consciousness had been quietly replaced by an enhanced human during his last routine medical examination. His knowledge of Altarian military codes, cultural protocols, and political relationships was perfect, because the human now wearing his form knew him better than he had known himself. The Zephyrian trade representative continued her passionate advocacy for increased military action, unaware that the nanomachines in her bloodstream had been gradually rewriting her brain chemistry for weeks. She was still completely herself, except for a few subtle modifications that made her suggestions align perfectly with humanity's strategic objectives. Even High Chancellor Vextar himself had been influenced. The crystalline matrix that formed his body had been infiltrated by self-replicating machines so small they existed in quantum superposition. He remained fully conscious, fully in control, and fully convinced that his growing certainty that the galaxy needed more decisive action against the human threat was entirely his own idea. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now commanding the infiltration operation from a captured hegemony vessel, watched the council session through the enhanced senses of her embedded agents. Phase 3 were proceeding exactly as planned. Status report, she requested from her linked consciousness network. The response came simultaneously from hundreds of enhanced humans scattered across the galaxy. Infiltration successful. We now have operational control of 73% of galactic military assets. Political manipulation is proceeding on schedule. The Council will vote for total mobilization within the hour. And they still don't suspect. Negative. From their perspective, they are making rational decisions based on incomplete information. They believe they are responding to an external threat. They cannot conceive that the threat is already among them. Dr. Vasquez felt a moment of something that might have been regret. The beings in that chamber weren't evil. They were simply product of their evolution, their cultures, their limitations. In their place, facing what they believed was an existential threat from a dangerous species, she might have made the same choices. But regret was a human emotion, and she was no longer entirely human. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. The Galactic Council authorized the mobilization of every military asset in known space. Every species would contribute their finest ships, their best crews, their most advanced weapons. The human homeworld would be surrounded by a force so vast that resistance would be not just futile, but literally impossible. What they didn't know was that they had just handed humanity control of the galaxy's entire military. Phase 4 is authorized. Dr. Vasquez transmitted to Earth. The Council has voted to send us everything they have. Admiral Hayes, now commanding operations from a mobile command center that phase-shifted between dimensions to avoid detection, smiled grimly. How long until the Grand Fleet arrives? 17 days. 3.7 million vessels representing every major civilization in the galaxy. The largest military force in recorded history. And our readiness status. 100%. Every ship that will participate in the Grand Fleet is already under our operational control. Their crews believe they are following legitimate orders from their own command structures. The fleet commanders believe they are coordinating with Allied forces. No one suspects that the entire operation is being orchestrated by us. Admiral Hayes felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. Humanity's plan was working perfectly. Too perfectly. The enhanced humans had become something that could manipulate galactic civilization with the same ease that humans had once domesticated wolves. Dr. Vasquez, I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. Are you still human? There was a pause. When the enhanced human responded, her voice carried harmonics that seemed to come from multiple speakers simultaneously. Define human, Admiral. You know what I mean. Do I? I still have human DNA, human memories, human emotional responses, but I also have capabilities that baseline humans don't possess. I can process information at quantum speeds, interface directly with any technology in the galaxy, and coordinate simultaneously with thousands of other enhanced individuals. Am I human? Am I something new? Am I both? Admiral Hayes stared at the communication display, seeing her own reflection in its dark surface. What do you want, Elena? I want what humanity has always wanted. Admiral, I want us to survive. I want us to thrive. I want us to become everything we have the potential to become. But I also want something that baseline humans have never been able to achieve, which is peace. True peace. Not the temporary absence of conflict that the galaxy calls civilization, but genuine peace. The kind that comes when everyone understands that cooperation serves their interests better than competition. And you think you can achieve that? Admiral, in 17 days, the galaxy will send us 3.7 million ships crewed by representatives of every major civilization in known space. They will arrive here believing they are going to commit genocide against humanity. Instead, they will discover that humanity has been protecting them. Protecting them from what? Dr. Vasquez's response chilled Admiral Hayes to the bone. From us, Admiral. From what we would have been forced to become if they had succeeded in their war. You see, we've been running projections for what would happen if humanity actually had to fight for survival against the entire galaxy. The calculations are disturbing. Show me. The display filled with tactical projections, resource allocation models, and casualty estimates. Admiral Hayes felt her breath catch as she realized what she was looking at. My God, Elena, this isn't a war plan. This is an extermination protocol. Yes, Admiral, if the galaxy had actually succeeded in threatening humanity's survival, we would have been forced to become something that could guarantee their complete elimination. Not just defeat, elimination. Every species, every world, every trace that they had ever existed. And you can do that. We can do that, Admiral. We have been able to do that for over 50 years. Project Prometheus didn't just create enhanced humans. It created the capabilities necessary to sterilize the galaxy if required. But we chose a different path. Admiral Hayes understood. Humanity hadn't been preparing for war. They had been preparing to avoid having to fight one. So instead of exterminating them, we infiltrated them. We gave them the illusion of agency while ensuring their choices served everyone's interests. In 17 days, when the Grand Fleet arrives, they will discover that the war is over, not because anyone lost, but because everyone won. And then, Admiral, the galaxy will begin to understand what humanity actually is. Not conquerors, not destroyers, but gardeners. We're the species that will help every other species become the best version of themselves. Admiral Hayes closed her eyes. Whether they want to or not. Whether they want to or not. The Grand Fleet was coming. The galaxy's greatest military force, under humanity's complete control, approaching Earth to begin a war that had already been won. And humanity's true children were ready to show the galaxy what benevolent dictatorship looked like when administered by beings who could think faster than civilizations could evolve. The Grand Fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, 3.7 million vessels arranged in concentric spheres around Earth's solar system. The sight was breathtaking. Representatives of every major civilization in the galaxy, their ships gleaming with the accumulated military might of 10,000 years of technological development. High Chancellor Vextar stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Judgment, surrounded by fleet commanders from across known space. Through the main viewport, Earth hung before them like a blue marble, seemingly defenseless and utterly outmatched. "Final sensor sweeps complete," reported the tactical officer. "No human military vessels detected. No defensive platforms. No orbital installations of significant threat value." Admiral Keflar of the Reformed Hegemony frowned at his displays. "This feels wrong, Chancellor. The humans destroyed 7 of our fleets. They can't have simply vanished." "Perhaps," suggested Fleet Marshal QYXTEL, "they have finally realized the hopelessness of their situation. Even humans aren't stupid enough to fight this." Chancellor Vextar nodded slowly. The combined firepower surrounding Earth could sterilize 100 worlds. No sane species would offer resistance. Open channels to the human homeworld. We'll give them one final chance to surrender. The communication was answered immediately. Ambassador Chen Wei appeared on the main display, looking exactly as he had weeks ago when he had received the galaxy's declaration of war. Calm, composed, and wearing that same unsettling smile. "Chancellor Vextar," Chen said pleasantly, "we've been expecting you." "Ambassador Chen, you are surrounded by the greatest military force in galactic history. Your species faces immediate and total extinction unless you surrender unconditionally within the next 10 minutes. Chen's smile widened. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. Chancellor, you're not here to conquer Earth. You're here because we invited you." Before Vextar could respond, something impossible happened. Every ship in the Grand Fleet, all 3.7 million vessels, simultaneously turned their weapons on each other. "What?" The Chancellor spun to his tactical displays, watching in horror as friend-of-fire indicators lit up across his screens. "All ships, ceasefire. Ceasefire immediately." But the ships weren't firing. They were simply pointing. Every weapon in the galaxy's greatest fleet was trained on another member of the same fleet, creating a perfect Mexican standoff on an unimaginable scale. "I'm afraid your ships aren't under your control anymore, Chancellor," Ambassador Chen continued conversationally. "They haven't been for quite some time." The bridge erupted in chaos as fleet commanders tried to regain control of their vessels, only to discover that their command code had been changed, their tactical systems had been locked out, and their crews were reporting that ship functions were being controlled by persons unknown. "Impossible!" Vextar raged. "These are secure military vessels, the most advanced ships in the galaxy." "Yes, they are," agreed Dr. Elena Vasquez, her voice joining the communication from an unknown location. "And for the past several months, we've been improving them." The truth began to dawn on the alien commanders. The nanits that had been spreading through galactic communication networks. The routine maintenance that had been performed on every military vessel in the past year. The upgraded systems that had been installed to improve efficiency. All of it had been humanity's infiltration. "You see, Chancellor," Dr. Vasquez continued, "we realized something important about your species, all of your species. You're not evil. You're not inherently violent or malicious. You're just limited. Limited by your individual perspectives, your cultural biases, your inability to see beyond your own immediate interests." On every ship in the fleet, crew members found themselves unable to access their weapon systems, but otherwise completely free to move and think. The enhanced humans had taken control of the technology while leaving the beings themselves untouched. "We could have destroyed you all," Ambassador Chen said. "The capability exists, but destruction is wasteful. Instead, we're going to give you something your civilizations have never had: perspective." The main display flickered, and suddenly every ship in the Grand Fleet was sharing the same communication network. For the first time in galactic history, representatives of hundreds of species could see and hear each other simultaneously, their translation systems perfectly synchronized. "Look around you," Dr. Vasquez instructed. "Really look. You spent millennia fearing each other, competing with each other, preparing for wars that benefit no one. But here you are, 3.7 million ships representing every major civilization in the galaxy, all working together toward a common goal. Chancellor Vextar felt something shift in his crystalline matrix, not the invasive nanomachines he now realized were there, but something deeper. For the first time, he was seeing the galaxy not from the perspective of his own species, but from the perspective of all species simultaneously. The Altarian delegate, her bioluminescent patterns now synchronized with a communication network, spoke in wonder. We're beautiful. All of us. I never realized. This is what we see, Ambassador Chen explained. When you think at the speed we think, when you can process the perspectives of entire civilizations simultaneously, you realize that every species in this galaxy is a masterpiece of evolution. Every culture is a unique solution to the challenges of existence. Every individual is irreplaceable. But it was Fleet Marshal QYXTEL who asked a question that was haunting every commander in the fleet. What happens now? What do you want from us? Dr. Vasquez's voice softened, carrying a warmth that seemed impossible from someone who commanded the kind of power she wielded. We want you to go home, Marshal. We want you to take this experience with you, this moment when you could see the galaxy as we see it, and we want you to remember it. We want you to make decisions based on what's best for everyone, not just your own species. And if we refuse, then you refuse, Ambassador Chen said simply. We won't force you. We won't threaten you. We'll just continue to be here. Continue to be the species that can think faster than you can evolve, that can solve problems you haven't even recognized yet, that can see possibilities you can't imagine. Admiral Keflar, still struggling to process what was happening, managed to ask, Why? Why do this instead of simply conquering us? Because conquest is temporary, Dr. Vasquez replied. Fear-based compliance only lasts as long as the fear does. But understanding is permanent. Once you've seen what we've shown you today, you can't unsee it. Once you've experienced thinking from the perspective of the entire galaxy, you can't go back to thinking only of your own small corner of it. Around the solar system, the impossible fleet began to move, not in attack formation, but in something that resembled a vast, complex dance. Ships that had been enemies for millennia found themselves flying in perfect harmony, their crews able to communicate directly with each other for the first time in their civilization's histories. This is what we're offering the galaxy, Ambassador Chen said. Not conquest, not domination, but partnership. We'll be the species that helps all the other species reach their full potential. We'll solve the problems that seem unsolvable, mediate the conflicts that seem intractable, and explore the possibilities that seem impossible. And in return, Chancellor Vextar found himself asking, in return, the galaxy becomes what it was always meant to become, not a collection of competing civilizations, but a single, vast community working together toward goals that none of us could achieve alone. The communication network filled with voices as beings across the fleet began to speak, not as representatives of their species, but as individuals experiencing something unprecedented. The hegemony commander admitted that his people's millennium-long territorial dispute with the coalition suddenly seemed absurd when viewed from both perspectives simultaneously. The Zephyrian trade minister realized that her empire's protectionist policies were actually harming the very citizens they were meant to protect. But it was High Chancellor Vextar who spoke the words that would be remembered as the moment galactic civilization truly began. We accept, not surrender, partnership. We accept partnership. The fleet began to disperse, but not in defeat. Ships that had arrived as enemies departed as something new, the first members of a galactic community that transcended species, politics, and the ancient fears that had kept civilizations apart for millennia. Dr. Vasquez stood in her command center, feeling the satisfaction of a plan executed perfectly. Around her, displays showed the departing fleets returning to their home systems, carrying with them not conquest or defeat, but transformation. Status report, Admiral Hayes requested from Earth. Phase 5 complete. The galaxy has accepted the new paradigm. Integration will begin within the standard month as each species adapts to their expanded perspective. And the Enhanced Human Project. Dr. Vasquez paused, considering the question that had been haunting her for weeks. We remain human, Admiral. Just more so. We're what humanity becomes when it's free to grow beyond the limitations that evolution imposed on us. Any regrets? None. We gave the galaxy a choice: evolve or be replaced. They chose to evolve. Now we get to shepherd that evolution, ensure it serves everyone's interests, and explore what lies beyond the boundaries of what any single species could achieve alone. On Earth, humanity celebrated not a military victory, but something far more significant: the birth of true galactic civilization. The planet that had been dismissed as primitive and backward had become the heart of something unprecedented, a community of species working together not because they had to, but because they had finally learned to see beyond their own limitations. And in the depths of space, advanced human vessels continue their patient work, spreading through the galaxy not as conquerors, but as gardeners, helping each civilization bloom into its full potential while ensuring that the community they were all building together would endure long after the stars themselves had grown cold. The galaxy had declared war on humanity. Humanity had responded by teaching the galaxy how to declare peace. And both sides had discovered that they were capable of becoming something far greater than either had ever imagined possible.